Hello and welcome to Against the Storm patch 0.52, the Quality of Life update. In this update, there is perhaps less new content, but instead they've given us a bunch of quality of life changes that the community has been asking for. And the reason there's less new content is because they are heavily focused on the new world map cycle revamp. And what that means is that's probably coming next patch. Just guessing, but it seems like with them focusing on it so hard, it seems like they may have even been trying to get it for this patch cycle. But even if not, we'll see it very soon. And even though there's not much new content, some of these new quality of life changes are really good. So let's go ahead and take a look at the patch notes and take a look at what's new in the game. So the first new thing is actually new content, and you could see it in the little picture, but I'm bringing it up larger here just so you can see it a little bit better. Another new small glade event, not the last new small glade event either. As they mentioned in the patch notes, they do plan to bring more small glade events to us over time. This one is an obelisk. The obelisk is a new structure that you can convert or get rid of, kind of similar to the way you do some of the other structures in the larger glades. This one will reduce your hostility by a small amount. If you convert it or if you get rid of it, you obviously get a bunch of new material. I just lost where in the patch notes it said the new the amount of hostility that's reduced by, but I'll grab it later and we'll get it. Beyond that, the next new thing is a brand new UI screen in the Citadel, and that is this game history UI, and this UI will show us a summary of all of the games we've played in the save. I believe at least in the save, what progress we've made. What we've unlocked, what bonuses we have, and Citadel upgrades we have there on the left, and perhaps more. We'll get into this more when we go through the next game. Either at the beginning, if it shows history for the entire save, or at the end of the next mini-series, if it shows just since the Citadel reset, because as you may remember, we finished the last mini-series with a Citadel reset. So there's a lot of information here, which would be a really nice thing to have, so we can go and take a look at how the game's played out for us. And they moved, as you can see, some of the stats over here from elsewhere on I think it was on the deeds screen before. The next is a nice little UI bonus where you can manage your woodcutters via another button on the central HUD. So, for example, when you go into a storm and your happiness, wow, just forgot the term, whatever it's called, the happiness one, jeez, Wally, goes haywire because of the storm and the negative effects from the storm, you can easily remove all of your woodcutters from all of the woodcutting camps with one click. Just a simple left click there, which is super nice. Because, I mean, half the time I don't remove them all, but we could easily go and remove them all and then add one or two back as necessary. So it's a really good feature. I'm excited to take a look at it. And then beyond that, we have a new screen for or a new list of building shortcuts. So you can manage what different shortcut buttons do and what buildings they will call to mind to be built. So, for example, their P will now by default let you build path, which is super useful because that's a very common thing to build. So if you like shortcut keys, this would be pretty good for you. They have C for the woodcutters camp. The 5 houses are F1 through F5. That's pretty convenient as well. So, because those are buildings you build repeatedly. I mean, like a particular crafting building, you may only build one of those, a production building. Even a camp, other than the woodcutters camps, you only maybe build one. I could see maybe putting farm on here, but the problem is you don't always have the same farm buildings every run. So that wouldn't work that well either. Beyond that, maybe if you use a specific kind of storage repeatedly, or sorry, not store. Well, a warehouse could be a good building for this, or even the small hearth. But also a particular type of decoration that you used a lot of, maybe fence corners, could be another good thing here. Depending on what actually is allowed, the list only shows a few things there, so I'm not sure if that's just because I don't see a scroll bar, but that could just be the scroll bar is not visible, or it could be that you only get to do certain things. The patch notes don't specifically say, so we'll have to kind of just see what it shows when we get into the game. So the obelisk, no, it still doesn't show me. I looked in another part of the patch notes, and it still doesn't show me how much hostility is reduced by having the obelisk. But I suspect it may be just a small amount compared to like the because it's from the small glades, maybe 20 or something. There was another thing too that I saw that reduced hostility by 20, which we'll get to in the patch notes a little bit later when I can get to that point again. But there's they added a bunch of new haunted ruins. So if you aren't familiar with haunted ruins, in Forbidden Glades and some Danger Glades, you'll encounter, or less often in Danger Glades, I think, at least, you'll encounter different buildings that are haunted. And while it will take you a little bit more effort and or materials to convert those buildings to be usable, they also give you a huge amount of benefit for doing so. And they are... there were only just a handful of them. There were a couple of service buildings, maybe a couple of, I think only like 2 production buildings, and then some farms, 2 of the farms. Now there are 8 new ones. Maybe some of the houses then too. Yeah, I think the human and beaver houses, there were also haunted ruins for those too, because they've added in the cooperage, which has all 3-star recipes for barrels, training gear, and tea. Leatherworks, with 3-star recipes for water skins, fabric, and packs of luxury goods. The Druid's Hut, 3-star recipes for oil, incense, and coats. The Smelter, 3-star recipes for copper bars, pipes, and biscuits. The Cellar, 3-star recipes for wine, pickled goods, and jerky, as well as haunted lizard houses, fox houses, and harpy houses, all of which become hallowed. All of 8 of which become hallowed once you convert them. And all the haunted ruins are slightly more common, or somewhat more common than they used to be. So you will probably, if you haven't seen them yet, you'll probably start seeing them now in any new games you play. They have switched around some of the Stormforged cornerstones and Stormforged cornerstones that you get from the Prestige mode. Of course, I've only played Prestige a little bit, so I'm not super familiar with that particular aspect, but they've removed a bunch that kind of didn't make as much sense, and they added in 15 new ones. So keep an eye out for those if you play Prestige. One great new feature that I didn't know that I wanted, but now I'm glad that I have, is if you decide to decline a cornerstone during the yearly cycle, you will now be given a small amount of amber. It doesn't say how much amber, but a small amount. It may be more as time progresses, or it may just be a fixed amount of like 5 or something. Honestly, the patch notes don't say, and I don't know yet, as I haven't played yet. They've done a couple other changes to modifiers in Prestige, and they've also added Resolve, that's the word I was looking for earlier. Resolve specialization tags to some service buildings. So now the Clan Hall, the Temple, and the Monastery all offer the Warmth, which is the Lizard specialization bonus. And the Tavern, Monastery, and Forum all offer the Brewing, which is a Human bonus or specialization. They offer those bonuses so that you can gain some, I think both of those are the additional Resolve, +1 Resolve, I think, because productivity doesn't really make any sense in those buildings, I don't think, unless they did it a little differently. The market cart's effect in the market now activates if 2 workers are assigned instead of 1. The additional effect in the holy market now triggers if 1 worker is assigned. Market now has a maximum of 2 workers instead of 3. And the passive effect on the temple, every 300 seconds that you sacrifice goods in the ancient hearth, which is those multiplied by the number of stacks. So that's 300 seconds at 1 stack, 150 seconds at 2 stacks, 100 seconds of 3 stacks, 4, 5, and 6, and etc. I mean, you can go all the way up to 3 times 4. You can go up to 12 stacks if you have the materials, and you're insane. So you could quickly gain the bonus, the new bonus on the temple, which is hostility is permanently reduced by 20. Permanently reduced by 20. So that means that you can stack that up forever and keep reducing the hostility if you really want to, and you have the materials to sacrifice: wood, coal, oil, and the I always forget that last one, what that last one's called. I forget the name of it. I'm horrible today. You know what I'm talking about. The newest thing, that I'm forgetting the name of. Some other forest mystery changes. Hallowed Small Farm and Herb Gardens no longer have an additional recipe. Instead, they now have an increased number of worker slots, which is 3. So they'll be more able to support the larger fields of like 14, 15 than the regular versions of those. And they, as I mentioned, they removed a bunch of Stormforged variants from the Forsaken Altar in Prestige mode. There are 12 that were removed, and 15 that were added. As I mentioned earlier, the 15. They've removed them because most of them were not too exciting, and all of them were progress related. For example, the bonus activated after reaching a certain production threshold. So it was causing some confusion, and there were some technical limitations to making it work the way that people thought it should, so they just removed those perks. Some cornerstones were rebalanced. I'm not going to read through the details on those. But they also reshuffled some level up rewards. And I'm not going to read through all the details either, but they've moved a few building and cornerstone unlocks up and down the level tree a little bit to make things a little bit easier at the beginning of the game before you unlock a lot of stuff. And they also moved the less exciting and complex perks to level 0, the beginning of the game, as well as earlier levels, because it makes sense that you get the simpler and less exciting ones early in the game, and then you get the more complex and more complicated ones later in the game. As well as the paved road is now granted at level 3 instead of level 2, and the mine is unlocked at level 2 instead of level 3. So a small swap there between those two, which actually makes some sense too. I don't use paved roads that much, and you don't really need them, but the mine is kind of useful once you leave the forest, the rural woodlands. You can also right-click notifications on the HUD to clear them instead of having to click the X. This is with the exception of the ones that don't have an X. You aren't able to right-click those because those will go away once the situation clears. Selecting a house now shows the hearth range indicator, so you can make sure that a house is in range, I guess. I don't really see a huge issue with that, but or I didn't see a huge issue with not having that, but that's kind of nice. Oh, that building shortcuts, there are only 10 slots available, so you have to pick and choose which ones you want. Hovering over a species in the embarkation view will now list its needs in the tooltip. So now you can see what food and services needs they require or they would like to have. The worker overlay, the alt overlay, now shows a progress bar for glade events that are being worked on. I'm assuming that includes things like caches and small glade events as well. And speaking of glade events, the treasure stags description has been updated a little bit. There's a new automatic pause option, which we're using some of those in my series, and I suspect many of you may be using some or all of the ones that are available there for just before a trader leaves, so that you can make sure that you have finished all your business with the trader before they leave. So I'm assuming that if you unpause from that pause action, the trader will leave right then. So it's kind of like that last second, I'm leaving, are you sure you don't need anything else? Kind of an alert, which is really nice, and I think I will probably turn that on, at least for now. And then there's a bunch of other changes to different perks, different forest mysteries, and other effects in the game, just to make them a little more clear, or to make them a little bit sort of standardized. For example, some of the perks that trigger 2 buttons or 2 icons in the on the HUD, one for the fact that you have the perk, and then one for the number of stacks you have. Those have been merged into one icon, so that you don't see, so that to save the number of icons you have, especially later in the game. And it gets a little busy down there. Lots of bug fixes, of course, in this update as well. Not as many as there have been recently. I guess they're probably working through most of the bugs, at least on the existing content. Of course, there's always new bugs that crop up in code, but yeah. And then this is one thing that I commented on, I think, in the last mini-series. They've added unique short descriptions to all types of trees in the game. Previously, they all stated a perfect source of wood, regardless of biome. Thank you, I guess. It's a funny one. I mean, it's funny that they didn't have it, but it's also a funny thing to have as well, I guess. And rebuilt haunted ruins have a faint glow to show that the building is of higher quality. So that is the end of the patch notes. I'm as always excited to jump in and play another mini-series, to take a look at another town, and I'm going to do that right after I finish this, actually. So if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything like that, let me know in the comments section. Stay tuned on my channel for the next mini-series coming up tomorrow as I release this, or perhaps today as you see it, depending on your location in the world and how quickly you react to YouTube alerts. And also make sure you check out other content on my channel in the 11 or 12 days in between every mini-series, because there's likely to be some other great games that you're interested in. I play a lot of city builder and strategy type games, and some other stuff mixed in for fun. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.